welcome. Well, you're in for a treat. My guest tonight is Angie Hong, and some of you will have read about her very recently. She was featured in the Star Tribune in a big article about her work, but the article has a photo, and the title of the article is By Nature, a Teacher. So we're going to find out if that's true when you get to meet Angie. She is a zoologist, and if you haven't gotten to know a zoologist, we'll have her define what that entails. But she is also employed by the East Metro Water Resources Program, and it's a unique program that she has a unique job to match. She is, and I want to get her title correct, the Senior Water Resource Education Specialist for this group. And so we're going to talk today about water and about things that she does to educate the public, both here and abroad via social media. And I'm just delighted that she could be here with me tonight. So welcome, Angie.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, of course. I have so many questions, but I promised the viewers we'd ask what a zoologist is.
Sure.
And do you want to just define it briefly?
Sure, yeah. So zoology is the study of animals, basically, and that could be anything from a zebra to a bumblebee. And that was what I studied as an undergraduate, but then I really also have a love for people and a love for teaching. So I ended up going into environmental education instead of going down that route of being an animal behavioral researcher like I originally thought maybe I would.
And from reading the big article in the Star Tribune written by Matt McKinney, I was so sure that you must love your work. I'm just chatting with you a bit now. It's being confirmed, but you've not had the job forever and ever and ever. You started in 2018?
No, I started in 2006. So it kind of almost
did.
feels like it's been forever and ever and ever, to be
Okay.
honest. Yeah, it's been 18 years now.
Had a different impression. I read something incorrectly.
Yeah, no, so 18 years, which to me kind of almost feels like forever and ever. It's not all my life, but it's a lot.
Yes, it's a long time.
Yeah.
And how would you describe, Angie, your main goal with what you are doing?
Sure. So what makes the program unique is that it's a partnership, and it started with 6 local government partners, and it's grown now that we have 31. It's cities, counties, soil and water conservation districts, watershed districts, but everybody shares in common this desire to educate the public and educate landowners that live in our area about what they can do to protect the water. So that's where I come in, and when you think about water, we were just talking before the show about how it touches us in so many ways in our life. So there's the water we drink. There is the water when we go to the beach and we go swimming. There's the water when, it was fishing opener and you're going out fishing.
And we test water when we've had COVID.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So
just all these different aspects of water. In Washington County where I live, we have around 254 lakes, according to the Minnesota DNR.
In Washington County
Yes,
alone?
just in one county.
Oh, that's a trivia question to
yes, it's a lot.
be surprised at.
Yeah, we have the Mississippi River, we have the St. Croix River, we've got about a dozen trout streams, we've got wetlands. There's just so much water, and so so many people to kind of teach and interact with and help people discover ways that they can protect water.
And you've been turning to social media to share your knowledge and to share your information. And she's had great success and maybe even surprisingly.
Yeah, surprise is for sure.
And tell the viewers where you go with your social media outreach.
Yeah, and so that was definitely a COVID kind of thing. Prior to COVID, we would do workshops in person, we do community events, and I'm still doing all those kinds of things. But for a while, people weren't.
Right.
And schools were also closed down. And so I would take my son and we would go out in the woods and he'd have a journal and we'd be exploring and I'd make videos about the things that we were doing and talk about the prairies or the wetlands that we were visiting. And in the beginning, I'd post them and a handful of people would see them.
So kind of a low-key start, wasn't it?
Yes, very low-key start. I mean, for several months, very, very low-key. I would post them on our organization's Facebook page. I started posting them on TikTok because TikTok was kind of coming into being around 2020, or becoming a thing. And then somewhere along the way, they suddenly started taking off. And they don't all take off, but enough did that it became a thing.
And now it's a big thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The statistic that you'll be impressed by is that 15 million people viewed one of her posts.
Yep.
And that's a gulp, isn't it?
I know, it is. It's kind of scary sometimes. It's like, who are all these people? And they don't even all live in Minnesota necessarily.
No, I mean, sure not.
I think there's a healthy contingent that live in our area and they live in Minnesota, and I know because people who are writing in the comments.
And they tell you that they're reading it.
Yeah, they say, oh, I was so inspired by this video you made and I'm making a rain garden or I'm planting a pollinator garden. I think, oh, that's great. But I also know people will post in the comments and they'll say, well, I live in Texas and I've never been to Minnesota, but I really want to now because it looks so pretty and it seems like the people are so nice there. And I said, of course they are. Of course you should come visit. So.
Well, this video that got this huge amount of attention had a fun little story, just real quickly. Your son was very involved.
Yeah. So it was last spring and the St. Croix River was flooding. And the St. Croix River floods almost every spring, but it was flooding extra specially much last spring.
I remember.
Yeah, and we were down there just to, spectate and see the flooding like many people were. And there was this little tiny whirlpool that we found that was in the water, which was just, a pipe that the water was going down this pipe, but making a whirlpool. And he grabbed a branch and it just got sucked down instantly. But it happened to be he had taken my phone and he was making a video of it, and then I recorded him and it went down and we laughed hysterically and we posted it and it just was one of those like ridiculous mega viral videos.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's like, wow, you'd never know. Well, to just back up a minute, when we think about water in a broad sense, as you say, you have 254 lakes just in your area. We're very, very lucky here in Minnesota to have so much pretty clean water. But as I read the papers and hear the news, the southwest part of our country is getting very, very concerned. How do you see the state of water in our country right now? And I know this isn't your realm, but as a water resource person.
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying that, water is the new oil, that's going to be where the conflicts are going to arise, or in some parts of the world, maybe conflicts already are arising over water. In the southwest of the United States, I mean, there's so many of those communities are really booming and growing, and we have places where reservoirs are down so low that they're not certain how they're going to have enough drinking water. Yeah,
I've read about that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the thing that is interesting is you have places where there's not enough water, and places where there's too much water. Where there's constant flooding happening or rising sea levels, such as in Florida. So in Florida you have a concern where some of the coastal communities might end up being underwater in another 50 years. And it's, this kind of balancing act of where, you can't necessarily use the water from Florida over in the Southwest. I mean, to begin with, it's salt water. But secondly, just because there's water here in Minnesota or down in Florida doesn't mean you can get it over to Mexico or Colorado.
You almost have to think, what area of the country are we talking about when we talk about worrying about water?
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to end up having a country that gets into tough negotiations, maybe conflict even, about water rights? And, can we can we sell our water? Do we give it away?
Sure.
I just start thinking of the ethical issues, and it's kind of mind-boggling, really.
I know there's been proposals to try to ship the water from the Great Lakes to other states.
Yes, I've read some.
And people are, people understandably in our area are very against that because just because we have a lot of water doesn't mean we have so much that we want to give it away necessarily.
Well, there's, kind of, that's my water.
And it's even if you think of our own water here in Minnesota, we have a lot in the lakes, but most of our drinking water, 75% of the state is drinking groundwater. And so we're pumping it up out of the ground, and if you put it back down into the ground, it's a circular system. But in a lot of cases, if we're pumping it out of the ground and we water our lawns and it runs off into the road, and then it goes into a storm sewer and it goes to the Mississippi River, well, now we've actually lost it forever because it's down to the Gulf of Mexico. Now it's in the ocean somewhere. So we have examples even here where we think of ourselves as having so much water,
but really,
there's areas where we have aquifer drawdown and we're worried about not having enough drinking water long term if we don't switch to, a surface water source or something like that.
So that's one of the things you're on top of and helping get people more in tune with this issue, right?
Yep. I mean, it's interesting. The kinds of things that we recommend people do to protect lakes and rivers from runoff pollution are a lot of times the kinds of things you do to protect the groundwater and the drinking water too. So it's all connected, even though you don't necessarily think an aquifer and a lake and a river are connected to one another. They really are.
Right. It's a very a lot of cycles that overlap, aren't there?
It's all integral to one another.
Does it make you stay up at night worrying about what might be the case in 50 years or 30 years? Is it that kind of issue, do you think, at this point, or is it just something that is we better get on before
I'm trying to think of the best way to answer it. It's a big enough concern that I try not to think about it.
Okay. You don't want to get too overwhelmed by it?
Yeah. I mean, I think we have enough very serious environmental concerns in the world, and it's easy to get really, almost this sense of hopelessness, like, oh my gosh, what are we ever going to be able to do about it? And yet, when I look at our local level and what the action we're taking, we're making a difference. And so I try to focus on that. Try to focus on, okay, we had these lakes and streams. They were doing bad, they're doing better. Or we didn't used to have very many prairies, and people are restoring prairies, and now we're having prairies again. Try to focus on that instead of worrying about the, what's going to happen.
Well, worry also can be psychologically paralyzing in a sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we get the public too worried, people do tend to more throw up their hands.
Yeah.
If they think, here are some steps I can take.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the thing of the difference between environmental education and just telling people about a problem. Because if you just are continually raising awareness that there's a problem and you're never giving people solutions or hope that they can make a difference, then that's exactly what happens. People have that sense of hopelessness, they shut down, they don't try to do anything. Versus you say, well, here's a problem, but it's okay because, here's the things we can do to solve it.
We've got some strategies for you.
And not only are there strategies, but our office can help you because we do free site visits and we've got a landscape designer on staff and, we'll help you do it.
So you offer hope and you offer
give them tools, give them resources.
Right?
Yeah.
Action steps.
Yep.
One of the things I want to talk about the neat things that are very optimistic in nature, but I have to quickly ask you to comment on the PFAS issue in the Stillwater area now, and not only that area, but East Metro has other cities. They found 2 wells, as I remember, in Stillwater that are higher level than they should be, not by much, but what does that do in terms of your educational needs here to help people understand?
I mean, the PFAS, it's a huge issue. And In Minnesota, we've been aware of it being an issue since, I think, about 2002. So
Okay.
when I started my job in 2006, basically the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency had in 2002 realized that there was PFAS in the drinking water in Oakdale, Lake Elmo area. And around 2006 was when City of Oakdale put in a water quality treatment plant, and in the City of Lake Elmo, at first they thought it was only in the private wells, so they connected everybody to the city water source, then discovered, it was in the city water source that some kind of additional treatment needed to happen. But it's been this just kind of growing problem. It started, it's already a pretty big problem, but they knew that it was just in this localized area, and it's just been spreading and spreading and spreading since.
Here in Minnesota, you mean?
Well, spreading in the East Metro.
Okay,
Specifically
right.
in the East Metro, it's been
Right.
spreading, because water moves. And like I said, the groundwater and the surface water are connected, so in a lot of places,
sure.
they thought, well, it's only the groundwater, it's going to move slow, but it came up into a stream, and then it was able to move further and get into a lake. And so it's made its way all the way to the St. Croix River now, and it's pretty much the whole lower half of Washington County, so all of the communities. But what you're talking about is most recently we found out that it's even in one of the wells in Stillwater, which was a bit mysterious. That's, the water kind of goes like this, and the well's up here. So
that is mysterious.
yes. It's I don't have an answer for it yet. I'm not sure if they know how it's there. But also, there are PFAS spots all around the state that have shown up in places where it's coming from firefighting foam, or maybe there used to be a small industry that was in that location. And yeah.
Well, it's something to keep reading about, learning about, right? As citizens, asking our legislators to do more, to study more. Some of the things, and we've only got 10 minutes left, Angie, but some of the things you talk about in your blogs, in your talks when you go out to meet groups, etc., are rain gardens, buckthorn, pollination, and tie into water. What's been kind of the topic that you've been surprised has gotten people's attention and interest the most?
In recent years, pollinators have really been what's captured people's attention and enthusiasm.
And the tie-in with water.
I know. It's kind of funny because we joke. So the Washington Conservation District was established in 1942, a very long time ago, the wake of the Dust Bowl, and it was working with farmers on all these massive erosion issues and trying to protect the lakes and the rivers and keep the soil on the farm fields. Well, we look back at brochures that our office made in the 40s and 50s, and we were telling people to do the same stuff then that we tell them to do now, just for different motivations. So we said, well, you've got to plant deep-rooted native plants, you've got to plant trees, you've got to, do all these things to help keep the soil in place and protect the lakes and rivers. At the time I started, we were really focusing on rain gardens, and so we were saying, well, you build these rain gardens and it's concave, and when the water comes off your downspout or it comes off the road, it will go in here, the plants will take it up, it will soak in, and then it won't, flow down and cause stormwater pollution. We said, and we use these deep-rooted native plants, and now all of a sudden everybody's really interested in pollinators and wanting to plant native plants for pollinators, and guess what? They're the same plants. It's like, well, we're going to plant these plants, and they've got these deep roots, and they don't need to be watered, so you're not drawing down the aquifer to water your yard.
So it's a win-win-win,
It's a win-win,
right?
yeah, and it's preventing erosion from happening, and it's preventing stormwater pollution from happening, and also, guess what? The bees and butterflies like it.
Right.
So,
and we're learning about the value of keeping our bees and butterflies. So, well, that's fascinating, isn't it? Again,
so that's the way nature is. Yes, everything's always
right?
very, very connected.
The interconnection.
Yeah.
The show is going so fast. I might have to have you back sometime, and we'll do a part 2.
Water's
but
big.
I want to be sure that we plug your book. And she's got a book coming out. She didn't even tell me about, but I read about it and wanted to have her bring a copy. It's going to be published in the summertime this year in 2024. exploring the St. Croix River Valley. And a 2-year project writing and a couple-year project getting it published.
Yep.
Minnesota University Press.
of Minnesota Press. Yep. It's been a huge learning experience.
It looks like a beautiful book. I'm just dying to read it. It's full of photos she has taken, 300 and some pages of ideas for places to hike and things to do.
Yeah. I mean, so the St. Croix River, I'm in Stillwater, and the St. Croix River, it's a wild and scenic river, which is really special to have.
I mean, there aren't many in.
No, and to have it so
state.
close to a major metropolitan area where you can drive less than an hour and you can be at this wild and scenic river. The St. Croix River is actually the whole reason that the Federal Wild and Scenic Rivers Act and program exists is because of the St. Croix River. So there's this really, really cool story there.
And so one of our senators, which was it, Gaylord?
Yeah,
Nelson?
it was Walter Mondale and
Walter
Gaylord
Mondale.
Nelson.
Oh, okay.
And they worked together at the time. They were trying to fight to have what became the Xcel energy plant that's now in Stillwater, the coal-powered energy plant. They were trying to stop that from being built, and that got built. But in the process, they created this.
So there was kind of a barter deal there in terms of.
But then also the energy company, they ended up donating a lot of the land that's now, Wild River State Park, portions of the, National Park Service land, and the plant's actually supposed to be decommissioned in 2028. So it's kind of this big long circle that story that comes full circle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
As part of our let's get rid of fossil fuel.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so
that's progress, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's just, it's not just the river itself. I mean, there's just all these parks, and there's prairies, there's woods, there's wetlands, and so
that you've written about.
Yeah. So it
Well,
was pretty fun writing.
Congratulations! I know writing a book is a huge, huge job. If people want to get a hold of you, find out, more about how they can access your information, what's the best way, Angie?
So there's a couple of different ways. If you happen to live in Washington County, you go to the Washington Conservation District website, and we have just this full list of events, and we offer free site visits to landowners and all sorts of services. I have a weekly blog that's at eastmetrowater.org.
And you don't have to live in the East Metro.
No. And I'm just writing about, water things that are happening in the area, so you can get a hold of me through that.
So tell us the title again of the blog.
eastmetrowater.org.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
On social media, since I am on social media, I'm primarily on TikTok and Instagram posting videos, and it's mnnature_awesomeness.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that's my handle. So you can kind of keep up with me that way. I obviously have an email and a phone, and people find all sorts of ways to get hold of me. But
but you would probably prefer not taking lots of phone calls and
maybe not getting inundated.
Right. So people can find out about you via the sources you're giving. In terms of some of the awesome things, we've got a couple minutes. Tell us one of the awesome things that you've discovered in the last year, perhaps, when you've been out in nature and hiking with your little boy Charlie, or on your own.
Okay, so one thing comes to mind on the St. Croix River. We have stand-up paddle boards that we take out on the river, and he and I and the dog used to all balance on one together, and now he's big enough, he gets on his own.
Okay.
We had brought his friend Gabe along. So
the dog gets to be with you?
Yeah, so the dog and I are on one now, and Gabe was on one, and Charlie was on one. And we had stopped at a sandbar, and they're off all mucking around, and they come running over, and they said, "Mom, we found something. It's weird. It's really kind of gross looking. We're not sure what it is." And somehow they had just enough detail that I was like, I feel like I actually might know what it is. And I come over and I look, and it's about this big. It looks like a brain, but also like a booger snot, like a giant booger snot brain. And what they are is bryozoan colonies.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, which maybe you don't even, so bryozoans.
No, I wouldn't have ever.
They're like, they live in colonies, and I had only ever found them before as fossils. You can go down to like the Lilydale brickyards and find bryozoan fossils. But this was a living colony.
Wow.
I don't know any other way to describe it.
Wow.
So you can.
Awesome, right?
Yes, I know. So just weirdly awesome.
Yeah,
and
weirdly awesome. That's even better for a 12-year-old boy,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And it's alive. It's just living colony of these little creatures. And they're kind of like coral, but not quite. So.
You know, one of the things as I read about your work that I thought I really loved is how we can really educate ourselves to look more closely at nature too.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was on a hike and I started thinking wildflowers. I know there are some beautiful little tiny ones, and I started finding them and just thinking, oh, the colors, they're just so great. Purple and yellow and white and pretty much wildflower colors. And the things we can start to enjoy that we don't always take the time to look at, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think once you become attuned to that, then it's just so much more enjoyable when you're spending time outside and you're listening to
more
the birds
things to
and,
enjoy.
Yeah, looking at the mushrooms and looking at the flowers.
Thank you so much for coming down.
thank
I wish
you.
we had more time. It's gone so quickly. But enjoy this summer and enjoy the rest of this year. And thank you for what you're doing to educate us all.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. I told you you were in for a treat, right? I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.